Hello, everybody. Hope you guys are good. Apologies. I had to restart my machine because it hasn't been started in 2 years. Finally gave up on me. Hope everybody's good. I'm just gonna give everyone who's joining a few minutes to join, and then we'll get started with the session. There we go. I just wanna remove the background on my video because not as cool as I thought it was. Cool. We are here. Thanks again for joining. I know this was supposed to be on Monday, but for those who follow me on LinkedIn, I was very honest. I did post that I could not afford to miss the Apple event. In retrospect, I wish I had, because honestly, there was nothing new. Still not gonna stop me from getting a new iPhone though. But yeah, thank you guys. I appreciate you joining. I know we had a poll in the first session and we'd agreed that Monday is the best time to do it. And I promise from now on, I will behave and I'll stick to the agreed day. Just want to make sure my phone is on silent. Cool. Okay, I don't think anyone's gonna miss anything at this point, so I just want to get started. For those who missed some of the sessions, this is the third one. We did do a couple of sessions before this. We had the first one, which was the intro to digital, which was kind of just an overview of how all of these sessions are going to go. What we covered there was basically kind of the structure of the different topics that I will be looking at from a calendar perspective. And I did promise that I will share some of these sessions way ahead of time. So you will see in the deck that I'll share, there will be the next one that's coming. I'll also just show you what that one is. I haven't really decided on what the date is yet. There's a lot of stuff happening at work as well. So there's a lot of stretch stuff that needs to happen. It is stretch season, but I will find a date that's not too far from today. As we always say, Strat has never killed anybody. So I'll still be alive and I'll still be functioning. So I'll definitely make sure that you guys don't wait too long for the next session. So today we're looking at social media marketing. I did there was a question, I think it was in the first one or the second one, around if Strat would be covered in the session. And I also did give some feedback that I'll actually look at approaching a lot of this with a lens of a strategist in a sense, but obviously also making sure that I'm covering as much information as I need to cover. So I will be trying a different approach today in terms of how we're covering this. And really what it is I wanted to, I didn't want it to feel more of a information dump. I wanted it to feel really more of a day in the life. We'll take you through when a brief comes in, what social media marketing would look like for a specific business and what the different aspects of social media marketing are and how they all kind of play a role in building a brand, building a business, and ultimately getting to the business objectives. So all of that is still covered, but you'll see there's a slightly different formula. I did want to kind of unmute everyone today just to make it more fun in an engagement session, but I forgot, my bad. But in the next one, I'll make sure that just to give everyone, the time to ask questions when you have questions before we move on to the next thing. I know it might seem like it's going to be kind of messy, but I think I just want to find the right format for these things. I think also it helps for other people on the call who might have the same questions if there's someone else who's, who feels like they want to just ask their questions. So I'm going to jump in. It's not a long session today. I will leave, as always, some time at the end of this so you can ask some questions and we can answer some of your questions. And maybe also just to get an understanding of how you found the previous webinars, and yeah, and possibly how we can structure as we move forward. So like I said, it's not going to be a long session. I'll just do a quick introduction of what social media marketing is, and I'll go with like the quote unquote dictionary definition, and then we'll go into what the key elements are. But again, we'll look at it as part of a brief, right? So we're using an example or a fake business where we've created a business or created a brief for it. There's objectives, there's a budget, and then we'll start to look at how we build that. The only thing that's missing there is a timeline, and I left it out on purpose because I want it to be an open-ended thing, just so you can see there's a long game, and there's shorter short-term goals, or rather easy wins, as well as a long-term plan. Then obviously, in the deck, I'm not going to go through it in this session. There is the resources as always and key to growth. I will change up the ones that I had shared. So if you have the deck from the first session and the second one, please keep that. You will have different resources to the ones that I'll share with this, because I wanted this to be very specific to this specific topic that we're covering. So then quickly jumping in, just want to kind of touch on what social media marketing really is, and also just to, not only just the basics, but also have a look at how you can really find opportunities within the industry, and also to find a place for you that works for you, what feels like it's something that you could do on a day-to-day, or already something that you're good at. Because that was the whole point of doing these webinars, right? Is that how do you turn what you have, or how do you really position yourself to find an opportunity within the digital marketing space. So this is going to be really structured in that sense. So what it is in essence is really just, it's about looking on social media platforms, but not just, for the sake of your business has to be on these platforms, but you need to know what the business objectives are. You need to be able to leverage these platforms and, to promote your brand, to engage with your customers or your audience, and ultimately to drive your business goals, right? Do you want to increase your awareness for your business? Do you want to get leads? Do you want to drive sales? Or maybe you just want people to engage with your brand and build that brand relationship, a community, or whatever you're looking to do. And now these aren't just limited to, the traditional awareness, engagement, and conversion. There's a lot more other objectives that you can create uniquely to your business. But I wanted to cover the basic ones, because then the ones that you will develop unique to your business also kind of fall under some of these pillars, right? It is a range of stuff, some stuff that we've talked about before and some that we'll get into now afresh. So it again goes back to content creation. There's community management, there's data analysis, and then there's the advertising side. The big thing here, and I think this is something that I've mentioned before, is that brands tend to blur the line between social media um, and social media advertising. Those are two separate things, right? And the one thing to really be careful of as a business, and even as an individual, if you have your own social media platform, and you have, let's say, brand deals and brand content, it's very important for you to be careful not to blur that line. You need to still keep the social media side of it, being social, being really just engaging with the people who follow you, who like you for whatever reason they like following your page for, versus always trying to sell to them all the time. When people are being sold to, they know, they feel it, and they don't like feeling like they're being sold to all the time. And this is where a lot of brands kind of break the line, where there's very little social engagement that's being done. They just jump into the selling side of it. And that's, again, something that I will definitely have a webinar around, how to make sure that those two are being done in a perfect balance, right? And then in terms of what you need in order for you to really find an opportunity within the space. Again, as the previous webinars, I touch on how difficult it is, as well as what you need, and also just different ways that you could get started, right? The big ones being, again, do not sleep on your own social media. There's a big opportunity within the platforms that you actually exist in, that you spend a lot of your time in. Don't just look at them as, just platforms you go to pass time, there's big opportunities within those. And then it's not easy, it's not difficult. It's really just in the middle. And I think partly because there's a learning curve to it. Some of it you need to do, you need to spend time doing some of these things on a day-to-day, and then you will start to see the opportunities within them. Some of them is stuff that you really have to put in the time to understand and learn and educate yourself. Some of them is just stuff that comes naturally, and you'll see when we go through some of the slides. Again, you need to be able to really have, that social media management skills. This is being able to see exactly what each platform is for, understanding how you need to engage with people on that platform, but also knowing how a brand differs from an individual, how even in a personal brand, which is yourself, if you decide to brand yourself online, how that differs to if you're just showing up as you and not necessarily a personal brand. And then content creation, I think a lot of us create content. A lot of us, or some create to put it publicly and let other people see, and others we create for ourselves. But the people who create for themselves often don't look at themselves as content creators, because I create a lot of content and it stays in my gallery. But a lot of us are content creators. It's just about understanding who your audience is. And I can tell you right now, there's an audience for every type of content out there. And then you also need to understand analytics. And I'm not talking about data and numbers and all this complicated stuff. It's just about being able to see and your analytics, your insights from the social platforms, and be able to then get actionable insights from that and actually get recommendations or for your brands, for your clients, as well as then customer service. And this one is a big one. Whether you're a freelancer, whether you are acting on behalf of a brand, you need to be able to know how to deal with people. And you'll see there's a big portion of that also forms part of the social media marketing course as a whole. Then getting started, as always, managing your personal pages or a small business account is a good way to get started. You can do it for free. You can do it with whatever commission structure you have or whatever agreement you have with them, as well as getting your online certifications. The good thing about these certifications is that they may seem like basic stuff. They range from basic all the way to complicated and really deep dive kind of certifications, but it teaches you the basics of this. One thing that I can say is that the thing that always blows my mind is how people who've been in the industry for a long time, people who've been working with these brands, tend to always, they get briefed on big ideas and they start to think in the same, from like a big idea perspective, and we often forget about the basics. And if you get the basics wrong, it takes you a lot more time to get to actually really being able to, not perfect, but really execute amazing online marketing campaigns for your brands, because you forget the basics, and that's really where it all starts. And obviously intentions and learnerships. I will, as part of the resources for those who are interested, I will be also sharing just some of, all of these agency groups or network groups always have an internship program or a learnership program that also has at the end of it an opportunity to get a permanent position. So I'll share those as well. I know, the big ones have them. Publicist Group has, Group M has. So it's just about sharing those opportunities as well. Cool. And then who needs to understand social media marketing? And I think you'll start to see a common thread from the last webinar to this one, even to the next one, right? We have brands, definitely they do need that. Influencers, I already touched on that one as well. As a freelancer, it's good for you to get business. It's good for you to understand when you're freelancing for businesses. And then as professionals, unfortunately, we get paid to be able to understand. But also, fortunately, that means you get to understand, social media marketing very well, because it's your day to day. And of course, Brad Pitt also needs to understand social media marketing, but that will make sense in a minute. Cool. So in terms of the key components, like this essential components of social media marketing, there's a lot of other ones, smaller ones in between these, and even other ones outside of this, depending on the nature of your online presence, your business, and that kind of stuff. There is always going to be the strategy development, right? You can't just jump in and start to execute campaigns without having had a strategy in place. And that strategy is really driven by a lot of things. One, what's the business, or what is the brand, what are they trying to achieve on social media? how long do they have, what kind of budgets do they have, and what kind of content are they looking to create, all of these different things. So that is a big one in being able to really put together that strategy. And then you also have your content creation, and this is where then your strategy then starts to come to life, because now you actually need to translate, all of this, the big ideas that you have, the big strategy that you have, how you're going to approach all of these platforms, and actually then bring it into the actual job of creating the post. So let's, as we've always said, in when this industry started, people would make jokes that, we get paid to update Facebook statuses, but you also need to understand why, when, how often, that kind of stuff. So it's not really just about updating a Facebook status, but maybe it is. And then community management is another big one. And this is where I was saying, having your own social media and also understanding just how much value you can get from that. The community management side of it is really just about being able to build a community, but also be able to engage with that community. And it's not just about, think of it this way: if you look at yourself as a social media user or as a personal brand, you can't always just be shouting at people, shouting at people, shouting at people, not hearing the back or responding to their questions or anything like that. And that's where community management comes in. And it's absolutely impossible. And I think, again, brands forget this. It's impossible for you to say everything that the consumer wants to hear. There will be some gaps, and when there's those gaps, your community is going to want to ask questions. Some of them will just want to engage with you because they really like your brand or the content or you as a human being, and you need to know how you can really manage all of that stuff. And that's good and bad. It's not just, really engaging with the good. What I've seen from a lot of brands and from a lot of it's actually a weird situation, because when it comes to a brand, you get brands that will only look at the positive, responses, comments, reviews, whatever the case may be, and they'll either hide or just ignore the bad ones altogether. But what builds trust often is if a customer has a bad experience with the brand and the brand is able to resolve that successfully and that customer is happier, they're more likely and more inclined to share and really talk about that brand. And people will see it as well, that, oh, if I have a problem with this company, they will actually sort it out for me. And on the other hand, with personal brands or people, they will get a 9,999 positive comments, and they get one negative one, and they get stuck with the negative one. And it's really important understanding what these two extremes are and finding the balance between the two. And there's social media advertising. This is the one, again, I was talking about, to say you need to know and be able to differentiate between the advertising side of it and the social media side of it, being social and advertising. So engaging and selling, ultimately. And then you have your analytics and reporting. And that one is last because it really applies to everything, right? Your strategy, you can have it, you can develop it, you can plan it, you can have all of your strategy plans in place and your media plans and all of that. But at the end of the day, the only way to know if it's working or it's not working is to look at your analytics and your reporting after each campaign, after each month, if you're doing an always on campaign. And then you have to fit that back, right? The analytics will tell you if your advertising is working or not. It will tell you if your community management is lacking or not. You'll also be able to check if there's a need for more community management hours, if there's a need for you to increase your budget or decrease your budget on advertising, or if your content is just not working, maybe you need to actually adapt your content and look at creating different content. All of that stuff is important. And then ultimately, when you have to do your strategy again, you look at the analytics and you look at all the things that it's made you adapt or change over whatever period of time. Then you change your strategy for the next time, so that you're not doing the same thing and hoping for different results. Pretty sure that's what they call insanity. And then in terms of, so just kind of going, into the meat of it then. So these are the key components of social media marketing, right? But again, looking at the theory of it and understanding what it is slightly different to actually seeing it in action. And that's why I said I wanted to kind of take you through a briefing process, right? So this is where you plan and you execute your social media strategy, which you then have to align to what the business is and what the business wants to do. So let's create a business for the sake of this presentation, right? So let's say there's a bakery that wants to target an 18 to 35-year-old audience. Let's say it's not a wide gap, but that's what they want to target, right? They want to target these people who enjoy, the people who will say it's for the aesthetics online. those are the people that they want to target, because really it's about their product and how it is presented online, right? But they want people who enjoy that as much as they enjoy eating their food or their product range. And the budget that's available, right? It's for content, it's for advertising, it's for community management. So you've got budget for these three things, right? Let's call this bakery the bread pit. Now, it's downtown. It needs to create awareness, one, because it's fairly new, but it also doesn't want to just shout at everybody, right? It wants to create awareness for people who are within a specific radius or range of this bakery, but also it wants to increase the engagement online. So it doesn't just want to shout and share pictures and content and talk to people and tell them how much their bread is, but it also wants to engage, right? So not only do you have those things on the back of your mind, awareness and engagement, it still wants to drive demand for the product. So people shouldn't just have fun engaging with this brand, but they should also want to try out their range of, probably should have used a product to understand better than bread, but we're here now. They want people who are going to order their bread, and ultimately they want to drive the bread sales, right? So that's the key one. And again, it's a good thing that you go to businesses that you don't necessarily understand, because what I've found is that if you are going to a business that you really are passionate about, it's something that even in your spare time you engage with a lot, you will have preconceived notions of how that business is supposed to run, how people feel about that. You don't want to look at the data. You're going to start have yourself kind of filter into the work, and that's very, very dangerous to do. So you need to separate yourself from what the business is trying to do, who the potential audiences are. Look at the data and what the information is telling you, and use that to inform what your plan is. So we've got the brief. If we were trying to break that down, right? So we'll say, cool, the objective is that they want to create awareness, they want to engage, and they want to drive conversions. Cool. Let people know we're here. Have them, kind of tell us what they like, what they don't like, and how they feel about our bread, but also get them to buy more so that they can keep telling us this stuff. So keep that loop going, right? So kind of moved from the brief, we've got the objectives. Now, what you need to then understand is, what does your strategy need to answer, right? There's a couple of things. One, you first need to understand who, the bread pit's audience is. Like, who are they? Where are they? And also within the channels that they're in. Remember, we're talking about social media channels in this case. Within these channels, which one is perfect to drive each of the objectives? And look at them separately as well. If you want to drive awareness, which platform, well, out of the platforms where the audiences are, which one is perfect for awareness? Which one is perfect for engagement? Which one is perfect for conversions? And I'll make an example. There's some brands where Instagram is a perfect platform to drive engagement because aesthetically it just makes sense. There's some platform where TikTok is a platform to drive engagement because it's just the type of business needs that, that engagement, that really exciting type of content. And some really is just about being on LinkedIn and offering a lot of information, thought leadership articles. We'll talk about that one day, about how I feel about that term. But again, it's different where the engagement comes on. It's different where your conversions come from. If you're a lead generation company, your conversions might come from LinkedIn. If you are trying to sell bread, in this case, maybe your conversion is on Facebook. But if you're trying to sell dog chains, TikTok might be the platform. Again, it depends. And then what you then also need to decide, that's on the organic side, right? But you also need to decide which of these channels is perfect for advertising. And again, that's where the intricate stuff comes in. It might be good to organically grow on Instagram or TikTok, but in terms of paid advertising and your objectives of driving conversions, then where is your paid advertising going to be? Then how we set up each channel to make that job easier, it is then kind of driven by, the answers to these questions. You need to understand, okay, cool. Are we going to be getting people to order bread from our Facebook page or from our TikTok page or from WhatsApp? Understand which platform you need to funnel through those kind of like orders and engagement and all of that stuff. And so we've got the objectives, we've got the questions we need to answer. So let's look at the strategy in a paragraph. We talk about strategy on a page all the time. I've never had to do one in a paragraph, but I tried. So for instance, within this context in the brief that the bread pit sent through, Then you're looking at, cool, Facebook and X will drive the organic awareness, right? With the focus on the 28 to 35-year-olds, because that age group, if you look at data, that shows that those are the platforms that they're most engaged on. Yes, they're growing on TikTok, but that's the ones that they use the most. They wake up in the morning and they open their phone in that. And that's what the data tells us, right? In the resources I'll share, it will also include some of the platforms where you can get that data from. Okay, and then TikTok and Instagram will drive the engagement because we want to share these beautiful pictures of the dough, the bread being made, the whole process of videos of that, hot, steamy bread, all of these things, as well as some behind the scenes content focusing on the 18 to 24-year-olds, because that audience has shown that they really just want content that, they enjoy the behind the scenes content. They want stuff that feels authentic. They don't want to really see content that feels less than realistic, especially from brands that they're kind of identifying with. Fine. Then from a paid media side, cool. Facebook and Instagram has the shop integration. So you can integrate your products. You can link your WhatsApp for businesses where you can drive people to order on WhatsApp. WhatsApp is, I think, for like 5, if not longer, probably 10 years now, is the most used social or messaging app in South Africa. And for any business, it's critical, if you can, to see how you build that into your consumer and your customer journey. So again, how do you do that? How do you drive people from these platforms to your WhatsApp to place an order? And then if you deliver, you deliver, or they can come pick up, depending. Remember, Brad Pitt said they wanted to focus on just the area that they're selling in. So it might not necessarily be a big radius. So people might be able to walk to the store and pick up their order. And then Meta and TikTok advertising specifically will be used then to drive the reach beyond the people who follow the page, beyond the people who already engage with the audience, right? That's where you get further reach, and you actually want to get people to go to the store while you're driving your audience down the funnel. And when I say the funnel, this is a thing I think a lot of people need to consider as well, is that it doesn't matter what business you are. It doesn't matter how informal your business is. It doesn't matter how formal it is. The structure of the sales funnel is the same. You need to get people from them being aware of your business to them actually buying a product. And there's a whole journey that happens there. Yes, for some products, it's a lot shorter. So bread might be one of those products where going from awareness to conversion is a very short journey. But if you're trying to sell something like a phone, for instance, or a very expensive gadget, that journey is a lot longer. So you have to do a lot more on the awareness, on the engagement, driving that, the demand and ultimately driving the conversions. But before we dwell too much on this, so you've got the strategy, you understand which platforms are going to drive organic awareness for a specific age group, which one is going to drive your sales, which ones you want to advertise if you want to, reach more people. Remember, it's a new business, so you need to be reaching a lot more people outside of the ones that you already have or already following your pages. So then that means you then need to start creating the content for these different platforms, right? So how do you then develop these engaging posts? It can be images, videos, memes, whatever. We've talked about this. It's also just about, what does your audience accept? Your 28 to 35-year-old customers are looking for completely different type of content, and there might be some overlaps. But your 18 to 24 might be looking for different content, and you need to understand what that is. And there's data that tells you all of these things, and that's when you can then start to make your decision around that. Cool. So from a content creation, let's look at the objectives, right? If you want to drive awareness and engagement, we just started, remember. The conversion will come as a byproduct, but we want to start from awareness. We want to drive the engagement and want people to really crave this bread and then come and order, place an order, or come to the store, whatever the case is. The questions to answer here is, cool, I've decided this is where I'm going to reach the 25 to 30 to 35-year-old. But what type of content will help drive that awareness? And what type of content is purely for engagement, right? And how you look at it, think of yourself and how you use social media. There's content you see on the timeline where you just read, you consume, like, cool, done. Information received, and you pass. And there's some content where it's like, oh, I want to comment on this. I actually want to respond. This makes me want to actually respond. There's different types of content, right? From polls, question, reels, memes, stories, timeline posts, videos. It's all really important to understand which of those content is going to drive that action that you want. And what does it need to say? Are you just going to constantly be telling people about how good your bread is or how fresh it is? I mean, Albany's been doing that for years now. I don't think anybody believes them. And then you also need to ask yourself, how often do we need to create this content? And again, it depends on the amount of time you have. And believe it or not, and I want to say this now, if you're working with a small business or you're working with yourself and you're thinking, I don't have the time in the world or the money, I can tell you right now, big brands struggle to churn out a lot of content because every piece of content is a lot of money. At best, you will get 2 or 3 posts in the month. And even then, that is a stretch. And these are brands that have millions to spend on marketing. So saying you don't have time or the money is honestly not really an excuse I would personally accept. I just think it's also in the process of how you create that content, right? So if you're working with a small business, always keep this in mind. Every single moment and every action that happens within that business is content. If you take a day and you go to this business and you say, cool, I'll be here the whole day. When your staff walks in at 8 o'clock in the morning, that's content. When they get ready to start opening the store, they're cleaning up, whatever, that's content. When they start, the first customer who walks in, that's content for the day. What they order, what was the first bread that was ordered, and then subsequently, how many people order that bread in that day, and all of these things, you can turn all of that into content. And it's really not about creating, TV worthy type of content. It's about content that really will tell the story of the business. So if I'm gonna go to a business, I'll be like, oh, okay, cool. They open at 8 o'clock. That's not what you were trying to tell me. You were just trying to show me as the staff walks in. I see them cleaning. I like this place. It looks clean, and I see how their bread is prepared. I really think that works for me. Although don't quote me this on this, I do think dirty places make the best food, but that's neither here nor there. So it's things like that that you need to really keep in mind, right? And you also need to stop thinking about them as like the mundane moments in the day, but that can actually be content pieces. You might tend the fact that Tembinkosi bought this type of bread as the first one for the day, and it was then bought by 26 other people as there might be something about this. Do you want to come and try it out? So you turn that into a creating, it's not necessarily you drive taste appeal for that bread without necessarily, being like, oh, we've made it with this type of flour, royal baking powder, yeast, whatever. I don't bake, people, in case you couldn't tell. Um, so the summary of the content strategy then again will be cool on Facebook, because we've kind of decided what kind of content we need to share from the Brad Pitt's pages to 25, 35-year-olds. Cool. We'll share the baking process videos. We'll also share the final products, and then we'll also run whatever promotions we have to get people to come in and try, right? Want to run some engagement content. So want to ask them which of the products they love. If you've tried it, which one do you love? Which one do you not? If you haven't, why don't you come through? We'll have a promotion for you to try something new every time you come in. And again, understand why they love some of this stuff and why they don't, and about your product. English. There's a lot of mess on that page. And then on X, you also need to create, an active brand strategy. And what I mean by this is a lot of brands are on X or Twitter, whatever you call it. And a lot of the time it doesn't really work because they're not using it for what the platform is for. I don't know how many times people will say this, but platforms like that are really just about within 5 minutes a thing, unless it goes viral, a thing that was a topic in 5 minutes is not anymore. So you can't be creating your product and just shouting at the audience. You need to employ an active brand strategy. What that is that you don't even have to create content. Your audience can create content for you. All you're doing is, cool, I'll try and find a tattoo that tries to bake and it comes out messy, and I'll offer to help, give them some tips or whatever, but do it in a way that's engaging for the people, and it feels authentic. It feels like you're talking to a person as opposed to a brand. If you want a perfect South African example that does this and they do it really well, go to X, go to the Rokomama's page. They're brilliant at that stuff. And again, that's just really what it is. All they did was they got a community management team, and they made sure that they had a brilliant copywriter who was part of that team, and every single response from that page for a time was gold, and people engaged with it because they wanted to get some of that banter from the page. And that's very, very rare to see in brands, and that's a big thing. And that also applies to you as a person. If you're pleasant to engage with on your social platforms, you will get that type of engagement, because people just sometimes want attention, if I'm being honest with you. But also it's about, we all want to connect, and if you connect with a human being, that's always a plus. Then in terms of the community management, I've touched on this again briefly, right? It's about interacting with your followers and responding to those comments and those messages and managing your online reputation. So we've talked about, we had the strategy, we've created the content, we've tried our best to, in terms of, we think this is where the content needs to go. We think this is the type of content it needs to be. We're expecting this type of engagement. We're expecting this type of campaign performance. Now the campaign is live, and you actually then need to start monitoring and responding to your audience. And in doing this, you're getting a real-time feedback from your customers and from your activity. So you're focusing on engagements, right? So the question you need to answer is, as your brand, as a personal brand, as an individual, as whatever you're trying to promote, do you want a one-way communication, or do you want two-way? When I say two-way, is it's a conversation. You're building a community, you're having a conversation. A one-way is just you shouting into, it's just you shouting to the ether, really, not really expecting anything back, and hoping everybody is just sitting on your page ready to consume and lap up your information that you're sharing. That's not always the case. It hardly ever is the case. You need to build that communication. You need to build those relationships in the community with yourself as a personal brand, and with the brands and accounts that you're working on. Then you also need to decide, are you looking to build a community, or simply just to drive a brand or consumer brand? That's up to you. But again, with this brief, the Brad Pitt, they said they wanted to build a community. They want to drive that engagement. They really want to be a people's brand, for lack of a better word. And then you need to understand, what are the platforms that are best to drive this engagement, and how are you going to do it? Maybe the engagement is not on YouTube. Maybe it's not on Instagram. Maybe it's not on X. Maybe it's on TikTok, or maybe it's on Facebook. You then need to decide which of your platforms get you the most engagement, and how do you want to, on the ones where you're not, do you want to improve that, or do you just want to be like, cool, that platform will serve one purpose. The ones where we're already getting engagement on, and comments and responses, we'll double down, and that's the one that we want to focus on, right? Then if you're looking at then the summary of your community management strategy, sorry, not content strategy, is that you then start to empower your community managers. And this is another big thing. And I think this is something that you can, if you're looking for an opportunity within the industry, is that a lot of the community management teams and the community managers that we have aren't empowered to actually be an extension of the brand, and the creatives that work on the brand and create content in real time. They're more used as a copy and paste, you know, I suppose, cog of the machine. And a lot of the time they get given direction. When someone says this, you must respond with this. And you can easily see this with brands. And I'll challenge you to go find some brands, just send a comment and watch what the response is. Look at the next person's comment and look at what that response is. You'll start to see the brands that have an FAQ doc that says you must respond in this way if somebody says something. And then you will see brands where it's like, cool, we've educated you on the brand. You know what the brand is about, what the image needs to be, what the tone needs to be. You understand the value of this brand's, equity. And so you need to know how to protect the image and all of those things. And we trust you, and they give you the freedom to do that. The engagements are completely different. And a lot of those brands get a lot of engagements purely because of that. And then on platforms like an X for the Brad Pitt, we're like, cool, we'll do some social listening. We're not going to create content from the platform. We'll really just listen and be on the lookout. And we use keywords that are related to our product. People baking, bread, what it doesn't even have to be bread related specifically in terms of cooking. It could be, what else can it be paired with? Are people having braais? Are people, struggling to come up with other recipes to pair with specific types of meats, whatever the case is? And then on TikTok, you then like, oh, cool, let's create a baking challenge. Let's get our audience to really have fun and try it out and show us what they can do. Since 2020, I know it's a year we want to forget, but since COVID, there's been a lot of this type of content, and a lot of people really took up cooking and baking and DIY and all of these things. And a lot of us are still in the process of perfecting it. Some have fallen in love with it. but some just like the idea of trying something new. And that's something that, again, is that's where the audience kind of overlaps, right? 18 to 35. There's a lot of people within that age range that are really about trying new stuff and engaging with brands that allow them to do that. So that's your community management side. Cool. So you've created your content, you are monitoring how people are responding to it, you are taking their feedback, you're really letting them feel part of your brand and part of what you're building. By the way, this is not just only on accounts and brands, it's also for you as a personal person, as a personal brand and a person on social media. Then comes the advertising side. Now, this granted will mostly be for businesses, but as a personal brand, if you are a freelancer and you're looking for clients, you can run lead gen campaigns. I've done that plenty of times where I've gotten website clients from running, Facebook lead gen campaigns, social media consultation gigs, and all of these things, photography gigs where I take an amazing picture. I'm like, I could get some job from this. I promote just that one picture and I get it out there and people get in touch and I go shoot and I manage to make some money. So again, it's not just brands, it's even as individuals. You can do this in whatever you're trying to do. So when it comes to social media advertising, you're really creating campaigns. And this is where I'll talk about paid media specialists. I'll talk about, well, there's different words for it: paid media specialists, biddable specialists, campaign managers, whatever word the agency you happen to look up feels is trendy at the time, I guess. So this one is really just about reaching a broader audience and driving a specific objective. The only thing I think I would like to touch on here is that a lot of brands, what they do is they'll build a massive community. So you'll have a brand that has about 500,000 followers on their Facebook page, 500,000 followers on their X account, or whichever platform they're in. But what happens is that they forget about that audience. The brand and the brand teams and the creatives that work on it get so obsessed with reaching a wider and broader audience that you never really create content that speaks to the people who already have shown that I like your brand, to the point that I want to follow it so I can see all of the posts that you're posting. Brands then move to, oh, want to dark post everything, want to boost everything. And in the content that they create, it's all about, it feels and communicates that we are looking for customers as if they don't already have them. So it's also very important to understand what your social media advertising does for you versus what your other social media marketing activities will do for you. Never forget about the base that you have. You will get more engagement from the 6 followers you have than from the 20 you're trying to reach who have no idea who you are because they're seeing your ad for the first time. So that's also very important. So at this point, you're then looking at all of the objectives, right? You want to reach more people so more people know about Brad Pitt, that the Brad Pitt bakery exists, as well as you want to drive some engagement from them, as well as conversions. So I want to talk about audiences a bit here. So this is where, unfortunately, for a lot of brands, not unfortunately, but for a lot of brands, they want to focus on, we just want to get our content in front of as many people as possible. And that's those are, Brian Sharp's laws of growth, and that's fine. And that's really an approach that brands can take. What's important, however, is that if you've already spoken to Tembinkosi and you've told him that you exist, you've told him what you sell, you've told him where you are and what time you open and and how good your bread is and all of that, you can't keep telling me the same thing. You then need to start to building your audiences where you'll say, okay, cool, these are the people who've seen all of that information. I want to put them into an audience bucket, move them down my funnel. It's time now to start engaging them, driving some demand and slightly different messaging, because I want them to start considering buying my bread and taking their time and walking 17 steps to come to the bakery. Because believe it or not, for some people, that is a lot of work. So you need to also understand that there's a job to be done there. And then when you're done, move that, a bucket of those audiences that have engaged with you to then try to get them to buying your product. And this is where this is why the sales funnel is always in that weird downward triangle. But because as you build your audiences, you will reach 1 million people, only 500,000 will engage with you and want to learn more. Only 100 will even consider buying, and maybe 10 will end up buying. And those are the numbers. That's the math, right? It's not even adult maths, just how it works. So you need to understand how all of those things work and can fit into your business. Cool. So when you're advertising, the questions to answer is, what do you need to do to drive awareness for the bakery, right? What strategy do you need to reach well, for each of the platforms that your audience is on, and how do you get your audience to move down the funnel to conversion, and how do you distribute the money you have? Remember, the bread pitch is going to give you a specific amount. They'll say, cool, we have 10,000 for the month. That's all we've got. That means creating the content, boosting the content, and deciding where that money goes, and deciding which platform gets most of the budget, and all of those things. Then you need to understand, okay, cool. So the structure of the page strategy is that we want to reach as many people as possible within that specific radius, right? Cool. We'll do that on Meta and TikTok. We want to have a balance of brand content and user generated content. The big thing with this one is that you can share your own content as a bakery, but there's so much power in the customer who's bought your product telling others that, I've been there, love it, it's amazing. You must try this type of, you must order this the next time you go there. I did, and I was, I was very happy. If you find a perfect balance between the two, you get to see which of those will drive the most engagement for you and for your brand, and you actually then start to focus on that. It's the same for personal brands. Don't just focus on having your face and just your face on every single thing that you post. Find a way to have, you have community, have fans, have strangers in your content. See what drives the most connection. We've done tests on a lot of the brands that I've worked on where we wanted to see if I had the product only and nothing else, or if I have someone using the product, what kind of results can you get? And what you actually find is that on the ones with people, those are the ones that people will engage with. The ones without just bread, in this case, they're not going to engage with it, but those are the ones that drive people to actually take action and buy. So you need a perfect balance between those two, right? And I've talked about the audiences, so I'm not gonna dive too deep in that one. And then obviously you're driving purchase, you need to understand where are people gonna order. Is it on Messenger if that still exists, or is it on WhatsApp, or is it DMs? Is it on your website if you have a website? In this case, it's in your business, so it's gonna be WhatsApp. Then you can test TikTok shopping ads as well. For those who've seen it, there's a lot of content around the trend TikTok made me buy it, and that's a big thing. And a lot of brands are reporting that it's not just small brands, it's all the way to luxury brands where people are buying luxury items because they saw them on TikTok. I think about 60% of people say that before they bought a product, they saw it on TikTok, or they went and researched it on TikTok. So it's really, really, really a very good platform to drive action from a customer. There was that meme from David Beckham and his wife about how she read a TikTok. That's very true for a lot of people, is that you will say, I read this thing, but in essence, you watch a TikTok video. But again, this is key in terms of social media advertising. Objectives, understanding which platforms are going to give you those objectives and splitting them. Don't try to do everything in one platform, well, everything on all platforms. Otherwise, one of them is going to fall short and your budget will be wasted. And then in terms of analytics, and this is the last bit, so bear with me. This is the one I talked about in terms of monitoring your campaign. You've done all of this. You've done your strategy. You've created your content. You are answering people's comments. You're managing your community. You are advertising. You are spending all of your 300 rands. Now the question is, how are your campaigns performing, the organic and the paid ones, right? You need to understand, is your content really driving that emotional connection that people are commenting? Are your paid campaigns delivering? Because if you're trying to run a campaign to drive people to your website and no one is going, pause, cancel, or go back to the drawing board and see what the problem is. Don't just pump more budget and hope for the best. These numbers and this data is telling you, it's giving you information that you should use and actually pay attention to. Then you also need to start asking yourself the question, are you running the right campaigns on the right platforms? Maybe that's the problem. Are you targeting the right people? Because you could also be on the perfect platform. All your audience is on Meta and you're running campaigns on Meta, but you're targeting the wrong people. Not the age group, the interests you're using are not the people. Maybe you're targeting people who are into baking, and your audience is the audience that wants nothing to do with baking. Nobody wants to touch flour. They just want the final finished product. You need to know where they fall within that, within that scale, and you know exactly who you're talking to, because then you'll be developing content that's basically for that. I've already spoken to this. So for instance, if your engagement campaign isn't getting the actual engagement you need to adapt. And that's clear. You can't just say I'm running an engagement campaign and I want to see engagement. What does that engagement look like? Do you want comments? Do you want likes? Do you want shares? Do you want saves? Do you want people just kind of, screenshotting? I mean, you can't tell if people screenshot your content, but you need to be very specific in terms of what engagement are you looking for. And if you're not getting that, don't take anything else that's second best. You need to then adapt your campaign to make sure it delivers on that, right? TikTok does drive a lot of engagement, but not a lot of click-throughs to your order page. Do you keep that campaign running on TikTok? Not if you're trying to drive to your website. You need to stop it. But if you're purely driving video views on that platform and they're watching your videos, then it's working, right? Your user-generated content that you're getting from your customers, are people liking it, or people do they feel like it looks horrible? I hate this because I've had brands where they will say, oh no, this person's content is not good enough. It doesn't fit within our brand image. And unfortunately, if you spend too much time as a brand or as an individual, I think the individual one is a perfect example. If you spend too much time creating a specific type of content, when you switch it up, it does not work well. Even if your audience loves user-generated content, if you've always only shared TV ad type of content, high quality production, when you share a video that was taken by, I don't want to say anyone's name, hence anyone, just in case anyone on the call shares the name. If you want to use Tembingosi's content and it looks horrible because it was taken on an Android, then your audience is not going to like it. They really are not going to engage with it because it feels off. But you need to get them used to really the different types of content, the what we call quote unquote authentic content versus what your brand is creating. Have a perfect balance between those two. Understand all of that. You can go through the other examples here, but I think there's really some key stuff you need to think about when you're working on this as a personal brand as well as yourself. Be very careful that whatever type of content or quality of content you're creating is sustainable and you can keep up. Otherwise, you're going to get to a point where you stop doing that and the audience is going to feel it. And you're going to start losing your engagement. You're going to start losing your followers, and you're going to defeat the purpose of why you're building that online presence in the first place. Cool. That's basically the social media marketing, key components and how those work within a brief, if you're starting to think about how all of this work together. And all of these are actually opportunities within the digital space. You could be a strategist, you could be a content creator, a content curator, a community manager, a copywriter, and paid media specialist, a data and analytics person who really just looks at other people's campaigns and tell them they shit. That's also a job. Or you could, be the type that will actually look at that data and be like, hey, actually, you could do 1, 2, and 3 and adapt this campaign and change it up slightly. So that's really is not everything, but in a nutshell is how we would approach developing a social media marketing strategy. And yes, we came from content marketing and we did social media marketing. So for the next one, I want to have a look at content creation and really just the art of storytelling, because I think that applies to if you're going to build an audience. People are usually there for stories. People are usually there to enjoy the content and be engaged. And it will actually, drive them to engage with you and comment and give you feedback. So I want to look into that. I want to bring somebody who does that though, on a day-to-day from the creative side. So you'll start to hear a different voice in that one. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm excited. But I think the big one is I will share this deck with you. There's some people who've reached out and they said they didn't get the first ones. If you haven't, again, let me know. Every time you register for these, please just make sure your email address is in there so that when I share the deck and all of the other resources, you are part of that list as well. But yeah, thank you. It says we have 5 minutes. So for once I came in on time. So thank you so much. That was the social media marketing webinar. I think it's too late for me to unmute everyone in the call, but if you've got any questions, I will be on the call for the next 15 minutes just to really understand where you guys are at, what questions you have, and if there's anything else that you would like me to cover in detail. You can literally say, I want to see community management broken down in more detail. We'll see how we make that work. If you maybe want the data analytics side of things, I will definitely do that. And then we can have a look at how we we really look at crafting some webinars specifically for those people. Like I said before, we will be breaking this up, so you're not necessarily going to be expected to attend everything. You just need to attend the ones that are relevant to you, really. Cool. I found the way to give you guys the powers of the microphone. So if anyone has a question, you can raise your hand and ask. So I'm just going to take the questions on the chat for today. I see none of my polls actually activated. That's amazing. Um, cool. Let's start with Kevin's one quickly. Gilles, I see your hand. I'll come to you now. If I'm starting an accounting company and I'm looking for customers, but I just started a Facebook account, what would be the best way to advertise my services in order to attract clients? Before I say this, I wanted to think about it for a second. I think you need a second page, and that one needs to be on LinkedIn. So again, what kind of business are you looking for, right? What kind of customers are you looking for to acquire? Do you want to do accounting? Do you want to offer accounting services for individuals? Do you want to do accounting services for small businesses? Do you want to do accounting services for medium to, well, small to medium type businesses? Do you want to target the businesses that are funded by government? Do you want to target the ones that get private funding? There's different ways you can do that. You can have the Facebook page and you can share what your business is about. But I think for you, the biggest one is use that page to get the information that you need, run a lead gen campaign, target specific people who own small businesses where they're in need of accounting services. Search might be a big one for you. Luckily, TikTok has a search campaigns now where if people are searching for accounting services, can actually find you that way. But I think there's a deeper dive you'd need to do. But yeah, targeting small businesses and small business owners might be the way to go. But I think having a look at how you can build that accounting company's name on LinkedIn is going to be a big one as well for you. But yeah, I keep saying this, but every time I get a question in the comments, I'd like to get an opportunity to really just delve deeper into what your plan is, because I'm not able to help with just that one question. I'd need more context, but for now, that's the guidance I've got for you. May I please receive high-level insight, guidance on how I can pivot from paid marketing to the digital creative space? I have a strong creative spirit and wish to align my career with the career side of digital marketing. So far, I've been researching the industry. Okay, cool. Skills and opportunities available. Great, appreciate any advice. Cool. My follow-up question would be, where do you work now? Do you have an opportunity to have some time with somebody who already in the creative space? And I'll tell you why I'm saying this. Sometimes it's not necessarily about looking outside of where you are, but looking within the space you're in and finding an opportunities and actually showing your initiative to want to do that thing. When I started in the agency space, I was a paid media specialist. And the way I transitioned from that to strategy was because every time I had to execute the campaigns that the team had worked on, I would sit them down. I want to understand how they got to the strategy they have. I would offer my input. And because I was adding value to what they were doing, and for them, it wasn't something that they were used to. That then built that kind of relationship. I got to be exposed to their brainstorms. They would invite me into their, the briefing sessions and all of that. It's also just about showing that you want to be exposed to that. But if you're only in a paid media company, that's a different conversation. But that's my follow-up question, Lebo. Like, what kind of space do you work in? Are the creatives within the company is an opportunity for you to put in extra hours with a different team, a different member of the team? And then I will have a better answer for you. And then cool. Mpo wants a comprehensive overview of paid media. Cool. Noted. I will definitely add that as one of the webinars, and we'll try and break up the paid side. So social, as well as programmatic, and just looking at all the different aspects of paid, really. Please, can you go back to this last slide? Mohale, no, I really don't want to. Um, I'll open it now and then I'll share. Kelito, you had your hand up for a while. Please go ahead.
Tembinkosi, thank you so much for these sessions. They're really valuable. I just wanted to find out, I'm unable to type in the chat. So I wanted to find out how to reach out to you regarding the last session I attended, but I did not receive the slides, please. And thank you.
Cool. I think so. In the last session, I don't know how it happened. When I looked at everyone who attended, there was quite a large number of people that hadn't, for some reason, their email addresses were not showing up. I don't know how that happens. So please just you can send it to me on LinkedIn. If you can just search for Tembinkosi Sikupela on LinkedIn, send me your email address there. There's a few people I've sent the information, so I will send that to you again. And is it just the last one or was it the first one as well?
Well, I didn't attend the first one. If you don't mind sharing, I'd also appreciate that.
No, you're not getting those slides. It should have been here. I'm kidding. I will send you both links and the recordings as well to the first and the second session.
All right. Thank you very much.
Cool. I don't know if this is the slide that you were referring to, or if you're looking at another one, Mahali, but I'm assuming that was the last one you wanted to see the next webinar. Can you get more on the data analytics tools software and how to interpret it? Yes. So on the resources, especially in the last one, I'll try and include that slide. I did have some of the tools in terms of data analytics and what those softwares are, which ones are free, which ones are available for you to really have a look at. The biggest one and the easiest way for me to understand is even within your own social platforms, if you don't have them as business accounts or in Instagram pages, turn those into create our brand or business accounts, and then have access to those insights and analytics. And you'll see once you start actually paying attention to those, it helps quite a lot. But I will include a slide, and I will also have a different session that focuses on analytics and just insights and being able to let the data really drive what you're trying to do. Cool. Any other questions? Does anyone have any comments? Anyone who hasn't received any of the previous slides or recordings, or if you have maybe have missed the sessions, please just drop me a message on LinkedIn and I'll add you to the list and I'll send you all of the slides. But yeah, if there are no questions, that's pretty much it. And thank you guys. Thanks to everybody who joined. As always, appreciate you all coming through. And if you've got any questions, any feedback, anything like that, please reach out to me on LinkedIn. I will create a doc for the next one where people can anonymously tell me how they feel about the sessions and what they would like to see, because that's less pressure for everyone. But thank you very much, guys, for joining. I hope you have a fantastic week further, and I'll see you on LinkedIn and I'll see you at the next webinar. Good night.